Yes, indeed, you know what it is and you know where to find it. So you want to know who's the best. You want to know who's got the best spacing, the best Kara SPDs, the best grappler fundamentals, the nicest green hands, the realest reads. I am here to tell you about the best Zangief players to ever throw a walking 720 worldwide. During this video, I'll be discussing the subjectively best Zangief players based on skills overall and innovative and creative gameplay. This means that even though someone could be at the top of the leaderboards at any given moment, they may be mentioned but not heavily discussed. Being the best at anything means one is not limited to points. So I need to start by saying thank you. During the Street Fighter 6 beta, we have had the #1 trending Zangief video on Google. #1. Not many people can say that in their lifetime, so thank you guys so much. If you've been watching the content, I really appreciate it. So I've had several messages and comments on the Zangief video we did, asking for a video about the strongest Zangief players in history. Naturally, this excited me, as Zangief is a character that I absolutely love, and being a chief representative of the Grappler Nation, I had to deliver. I couldn't let you down. Okay, so with all that out of the way, let's get started. As a side note, some of the footage you'll see in this video is quite old and difficult, if not impossible, to find, so please be patient with the content. You're going to see some videos that might be recorded on someone's old smartphone or maybe on an old camcorder or CRT TV, so some of the videos from back in the day, they're going to look a little bit aged, but that's normal for a game that came out in 1992 or otherwise, so please be patient. Okay, so naturally we have to start with Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. It might be an old game, and if you weren't around to enjoy it, it's still relevant because it's still played today, and particularly in Japan. Japan really holds a lot of their older fighting games in high regard, and they still sort of support them. Some of the most important concepts for grappling and Zangief were developed during this time. We're talking about everything that Zangief fundamentally stands for today was rooted and birthed in Super Turbo. This is what makes two specific players so incredible. So Gunze and Pony, like the animal, are known to be two of the best Zangief players to ever touch Super Turbo. Best known for defeating whole teams with unfavorable matchups that they weren't supposed to be beating. And to me, this is the pinnacle of Zangief play. No special comeback mechanics other than your super, no gimmicks, just a sound understanding of the game and an extreme drive and will to win. Gunze in particular appears to be unfazed by almost anything when you watch him, as though his opponent could never frustrate him, which is at the heart of grappling. His persistence and relentless drive had me wanting to play Super Turbo while I was watching some of these clips, and I took a break to do so. It wouldn't surprise you to hear me say that my matches didn't quite pan out the same. So if you're interested in Super Turbo, these are the two individuals who are the most exciting to watch. Their spacing, their neutral, their button usage, the way they stand in front of their opponent, their relentless push towards the corner and to get you into playing their game, it's incredible. So I would definitely encourage you to watch both of them. Okay, now this is where it gets good. Street Fighter 4. Street Fighter 4 had a rather difficult system to master. And while the mechanics weren't all that hard to understand, the combos could prove difficult as one-frame links and execution were required. On top of that, Street Fighter 4 had a real vortex scenario, and option selects were known to be necessary to play Street Fighter 4 at a high level. Up until COVID-19, and maybe still potentially now, Street Fighter 4 was played heavily in Japanese arcades. In these arcades, there's a ranking system based on points. And while I don't believe points are always necessarily an accurate way of determining who is the best, simply because someone has more time than other people, when you look at the individuals in the top 25, you have names like Haitani, Dogura, Gachikun, Umehara Daigo, and Nemo. Of the top 25, there is only one, and I mean that, one Zangief player. Can you guess who it is? The number one Zangief player in the Japanese arcade scene based on points is a player by the name of Cantona. And I'm not talking about the soccer player. Now, I heard about Cantona during the final days of Street Fighter 4, just sort of in passing, where someone said that there was a Zangief player who didn't compete but was said to be one of the strongest in Japan at the time. And so many people actually don't know about Cantona. If you go ask your friends who they think the highest ranked Zangief player is in Japan specifically, you might hear a different name. Cantona is an incredible Zangief, and in my search for Cantona footage, I stumbled across this video from 2016 where they were playing in the Japanese arcades. Cantona's fighting an Oni player named Wow, and this scenario that I'm about to show you here, I'll do my best to pause it in the right section. This scenario shows the reason why Cantona is one of the best. So 58 seconds left on the clock. It looks like a little bit of back and forth. It's the first round, and Oni does a DP. Cantona blocks it here. Heavy SPD. Now he green hands in. So Oni grabs Cantona and throws him. So Cantona, being the incredible player that he is, instead of panicking, right? He sees they're both a hit away from death. And Oni goes for an overhead. Cantona stand blocks the overhead while inputting a flying power bomb, absorbs through the hit, and sends Oni into the corner. This required not only the knowledge to stand block that hit, but you need to know your character at that point. Do I have enough time to input it? What if he does a DP? You know, what are all the different scenarios that could play out here? Very, very, very impressed with Cantona's gameplay. Vangief. Vangief's nickname is the Robot, and for good reason. James Chen literally says that Vangief obtained that nickname during his time playing Ultra Street Fighter 4 in Northern California. And I had actually heard it previously stated on a completely separate occasion that that is what made Vangief so good, that he almost had like a robotic neutral. Vangief knew the exact range of the majority of his normals, and he was so effective at working just at the edge of the range of those normals. James Chen literally says he wanted to see some data showing the accuracy of Vangief's buttons and how often they connected because the majority of his inputs were so accurate. So this is a clip from 2010, I do believe. Super Street Fighter 4. This is e.g. Justin Wong versus Vangief. And although what you're watching here may not be, anything wild and crazy, wild and crazy combos, or, Vangief doing anything special to cook Justin Wong, the neutral is something I want you to pay attention to. And Vangief is a pad player, so naturally his movement is going to look a little bit different. Justin Wong playing on arcade or a fight stick. But during this time, it was said that the two best Zangief players were pad players. And we will talk about the second one here in just a little bit. But I just want you to pay attention to the way Vangief operates in neutral and how quickly he moves around the screen. It's almost as if he's ready for pretty much anything. And he's got this like kind of twitchy play style where it's like he's in, then he's out, then he's in, then he's out. Look at that. This, stand, medium punch, whiff punish, that kind of thing. I mean, the guy's neutral is just, like we were saying, it's just robotic. You just feel like you're always on the edge of him doing something, and then right when you think you got him, you get a normal to the face. Vangief is such an impressive Zangief player to watch, for sure.
Look at him, just like slapping Rufus's arms out of the way. No, you cannot.
After Death. So AfterDeathLive is kind of a special pick here as well. He was number one on the leaderboards towards the end of Ultra Street Fighter 4, and he was playing from the East Coast, but there's a lot of his story that I didn't actually know until I found this interview. So this interview comes to you courtesy of Olympic Gaming, and this was done in 2015. And After Death and I actually share something, and I'll tell you what that is in just a second. So his real name is George Hu, and he says that he was born in China but grew up in Australia, and Australia is where I currently live. And he's now living and working in Maryland, USA. I'm not sure if he's still there, but that's where he was at the time. He was 29 years old at the time of this interview, and his hobbies were playing Street Fighter. He also liked Marvel, World of Warcraft, and Hearthstone. And when they asked him what his 3 main characters were in Street Fighter, he said Zangief, and he said, if there's anybody else that I like Fei Long and Sagat. Fei Long was one of my favorites as well. Didn't really have a schedule after death. He said that for the most part he would just play a couple hours a night, and that he didn't necessarily look up to anybody in the FGC except for one person. I could not find that interview, but I really wanted to know. And this clip that I'm showing here, aside from other things, DiCaprio wasn't really that great of a matchup for Zangief in Street Fighter 4. She had, kind of this cat and mouse ability where she could kind of run in and out of neutral and, play hit and run. And it was kind of annoying to fight her. Obviously you could kind of mix her up when you got in, but she had a DP, she had just like quite a few tactics that could really chip away at your life over time and your patience as well. After Death didn't really look like he was going to win this match, and so I was kind of in for it. I really wanted to see how this one would play out. And so right here, this is the reason why this clip is even in this video. 25 seconds left. He's sitting on a sliver of health, full super, full ultra one. And this doesn't really look that great of a scenario. You or I probably would have cracked, but After Death definitely had a plan here. And you'll see it happen in just a second. Jumps in with the Superman punch, lands the EX green hand into red focus. Ultra combo 1. DiCaprio dead with 2 seconds or 3 seconds left on the clock. 2 seconds left on the clock. Incredible. Definitely a player I recommend checking out for sure. Itabashi Zangief, not just good at Street Fighter 5 or Street Fighter in general, but also really good at Virtua Fighter. He won the EVO championships in 2004, 2007, respectively, with Virtua Fighter 4 and 5. Itabashi, in one interview, literally said, I like to gamble and I like Zangief. That was literally one of his reasons for playing the character. He loves the fact that he can roll the dice and come up with an answer to a lot of things just by gambling. But when you watch this guy play, it's hard to believe that that's his mindset, because he is somewhat methodical, but he's also a little bit crazy. He's happy to gamble with his gray health. He will just continuously walk and block forward. I mean, look at the way he just uses gray health as though he can't get killed. This is probably the reason why Japan rates Zangief as top 5 in Street Fighter, because Itabashi has put a terrible taste in the mouths of Daigo, in the mouths of Nemo especially. Nemo can't stand playing him in Street Fighter. I think they're okay in real life, but in Street Fighter, he literally, I just read something the other night that said Nemo pointed at him and went, all you have to do is spin the stick to win. So there's a respect issue there too, but Itabashi is, if you haven't already heard about him, you definitely will in the future. The guy is crazy with Zangief. He's got reads, and like I said, when you're willing to gamble, this character just becomes unstoppable. So this was 2021, like we were saying before. This was CPT Japan, and he ended up taking it over Daigo. Incredible and impressive play. Also, probably being the highest earner, it would make him the best in the world, essentially. He's made $110,000 off of playing Zangief, so definitely probably one of the most paid when we're talking about just total winnings in terms of tournaments. All right, you knew it was coming. Snake Eyez, Daryl Lewis from Southern California, famous for being the best Zangief player in the world and carrying an entire team during SoCal Regionals in 2014. If you haven't watched this clip, I'm going to throw up a few highlights for you while we chat. Snake Eyez generally places well in whatever tournament he enters, and a lot of people don't know this, but Snake Eyez won the last EVO for Turbo HD Remix in 2010. I remember one time someone in Snake Eyes' stream chat asked him what it would take to get as good as him in Street Fighter. And the answer wasn't so great for that viewer. His reply was simply, "You can't get as good as me." At first, I thought this sounded a little bit cynical and maybe a tad harsh, but now I kind of understand why he said that. Snake Eyes has had a foundation for Zangief that stems from Super Turbo, a game that's so unforgiving most people wouldn't even bother going back to learn it. But even if someone did decide to go back and try to learn Zangief from the ground up, they still couldn't replace the countless hours that Snake Eyes has spent in those games fighting some of the best players around the world. So the answer was a hint to that viewer that the experience Snake Eyes had was literally priceless and now, unfortunately for everyone else, unobtainable. There are a lot of Zangief players out there, and in my experience, Snake Eyes has been one of the most enjoyable, if not the most enjoyable Zangief players to watch. I've watched him probably since the days of Super Arcade and the early days of Wednesday Night Fights, being that I'm from the West Coast and I'm from Los Angeles. And I used to watch him cook people that I literally couldn't understand what was happening at that time. I was new to Street Fighter, during the time where he was, placing like he was in all of these tournaments. And I remember watching him in the later days of Ultra Street Fighter 4. And sometimes it felt like he was looking at the game from such a different angle that a lot of his opponents couldn't keep up. And don't get me wrong, I watched Snake Eyes lose a lot. And I don't want to make it sound like he won every match he ever fought, but as a Zangief player, it was the most motivating experience to watch him do his thing. In addition to which, at that time, there wasn't a whole lot of data on the character if you didn't have a local scene and, you didn't have a really good internet connection to play people online, or you just, like, at that time I was playing with my roommates and I didn't really understand the game. I didn't have anybody to teach me, and watching Snake Eyes was like the pinnacle. It was like, this is how good I want to be one day. This is how good I want to get at the character. Am I that good now? I've still got a lot of work to do. But I have watched Snake Eyes cook some of the best Zangief players that we thought were the best. We're talking about some of the new school guys and the old school guys. So I think Snake Eyes will definitely hold number one for years to come. Even after I've made this video, Snake Eyes still holds the number one spot. He is the most desirable Zangief player to watch when we're talking about neutral, footsies, mind games, execution, combos, understanding of the game. He watches his opponent and studies their actions. He remembers little things that they do that made them vulnerable. The way he walks them into the corner. I remember him walking Xeon into the corner, with nothing but just, a step forward and, Zangief's long sweep, down forward heavy kick. There's just not enough time to say as much as I would love to say about this player, but you need to go and watch Snake Eyes play. If you're getting into Zangief and Street Fighter 6, do yourself a favor and study some of his matches. Watch him play when he's on stream. It'll give you some insight as to how to think as a Zangief player. And we're going to do another video in relation to that, but I've always been so enamored and impressed by his gameplay. It is truly wonderful. If you could please do me a solid, smash that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you're feeling the content. Most people would have clicked away already, but you stuck around to see who the best are, and I don't blame you. Thank you guys again so much for sticking around. So the next part of this video is going to go a lot quicker because we just can't get through everybody. without this video being like hours long. So I'm going to chop through quite a few of these guys and throw them up here as I remember them, and we'll just kind of go from there. So Mike Too Strong, obviously one of the bad boys of Zangief, very famous for reads, very famous for just all-around strong play, but also an all-around nice guy. Crazy comebacks. I've seen him do some wild things. The start of this video showed Mike Too Strong just regular throwing someone like 5 or 6 times in a row. He has a knack for the character. I think he plays on pad. All the best Zangief players at one time were playing on pad. I don't know if it's still the same way, but anyway, yeah, definitely a solid player. DrDannyPham also up there. He is a Warlord Zangief player from the West Coast, to my knowledge. Very, very, very solid gameplay. I have seen Danny come up with some quite interesting setups in his time. I have seen him make even the likes of Brian F. rage. If you haven't seen that clip, it's hilarious. He makes a wild read on Brian and just so happens to kind of snatch him in the neutral. Amazing gameplay. The guy has done some serious work when it comes to innovation for Zangief in Street Fighter V anyway. I'm not sure if he played Street Fighter 4 or not, but definitely came up with some new tech for the Zangief community. Eyez, to my knowledge, is a Japanese Zangief player, and his name is actually a play on words, or very similar to one of the best Zangief players from Super Turbo by the name of Awase. I think it was Awase. So I'm not sure if that's a thing, but it stood out to me when I found out about this player. I've watched Eyez do some really interesting things to get his opponents to sort of hold up, and he stays in this little pocket, just like DrDannyPham. Eyez kind of puts himself in this pocket where he's in jumping range if they throw a normal, and in SPD range if they go for something else. So it's really interesting watching him play, because he gets right up next to you and just makes you feel almost, kind of feel his breath. He's got a play style that's quite unique. Definitely give him a watch. He's definitely worth it. All right, what kind of a Zangief player would I be if I didn't mention StrongMonkey, aka Kichipa? I think Kichipa and I feel so similarly about Zangief and big body characters, because I think he also plays Abigail, and that was one of the main reasons why I started watching him as well. He picked up Abigail on the side, and when you watch him stream, he'll play Zangief, and if he's having a hard time in ranked or something like that, he'll switch to Abigail and start to kind of make a comeback, just like Itabashi and a lot of the other guys switched to Abigail after Zangief got quite a few nerfs. So, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. There's nothing wrong with switching up and, playing a different grappler. Zangief holds our heart, but, other grapplers are okay to play too, so don't at me. Yeah, Kichipa is just an all-around good player. He's kind of bulldozy. He kind of like, he'll run you over. He's that type of player. And when you listen to him, I think most Zangief players are like this. He doesn't take everything so seriously. When you watch him, you just, like, you laugh along with him. You're happy to hear him, laugh when he gets an SPD, or when he gets knocked down, he might chuckle a little bit. And I feel like a lot of Zangief players are very easygoing people. You can't play this character and be, easily tilted by things. So also a very strong player to watch. All right, look, just for the culture, I had to throw this one in here. This is Storm Kubo. He's not technically a Zangief player. We can do a whole video on Hugo players, but this one means a lot to me. I love Hugo. I love the idea behind the character. I was never that great at him, but I love that he's like the arch nemesis type, big giant character, lots of power, low mobility, big heavy hits. The idea of Hugo excites me just as much as his gameplay. And Storm Kubo is beyond famous. He also streams, I think, on YouTube. Incredible player, but just watching him play Hugo makes you want to play the character. He really gets into it. He laughs a little bit, chuckles a bit when he gets a knockdown. And when I was watching him play Hugo, you know, using the claps and, you know, like grabbing people out of the air like he does and all of that, just such an exciting player to watch. So also somebody definitely to check out. All right, so of course we got some honorable mentions and some people that I wanted to put in the video but didn't necessarily quite have enough time to do so. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. So I'm gonna shout some of these Gief players out. We didn't talk about Kenjiru, also a solid player. Stupendous, West Coast finest. Infectious had an incredible Zangief. Gief Kid, I believe Gief Kid might be from Canada. Bricks from Sweden. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed the content and you made it all the way to the end, thank you again. Please leave me a comment in the section below and let me know who your favorite Zangief players are and why. I'll be down there too, just chit-chatting with you and enjoying chatting about our favorite character. He's going to be in Street Fighter 6. We got some leaks that just recently came out. We can do another video on that if you guys want to see that. But until next time, thank you again. Please give this video a thumbs up and I will see you on the next one. Take care.